the words that I use to describe what this work is about, this inner work of collapse, is to expand our capacity to be present in the face of larger and larger stressors. You might notice that there's nothing about fixing or solving or solutions or being optimistic or saving. Because I just don't get any of those words having much validity right now. I'm very happy to say that when I really dive into just the simple words of expanding my capacity to be present, I just slowed down and I just felt this wave of like tears pushing out from behind my eyes because the possibility and the promise of presence
Hmm.
is like this door flung wide open to the implicit, to the oneness, to the backdrop of it all.
And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
Welcome, everybody. And just in case, let's see, I think it's Justin. I don't know if you know about the book session that happens a half hour before this starting time. But you are certainly welcome, and I think they're a really good fit for one another. If that's available to you, it is also recorded as this one is. So if you decided to catch up that way, or any of you for that matter, either this session or the book session at any time, there's posted in the course materials space and available to review anytime.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Well, I just feel I'm so happy that Jack has really gotten a sense of that book session, and he's the author of the book, Justin, that we're reading, which is Climate Cure, and I'm just so pleased at how engaged he is. I think he even surprised himself. So yay, that's a good thing. We're old time buddies, and I'm glad to see him um, just having a what appears to be a really good time attending and contributing.
Yeah.
So this is, of course, the official, if you will, Islands of Sanity in a Mad World session. And this is the second and final one for this September of 2024. And for those of you who have the endurance for it, this will be going as a series month by month through September of 2025. And I'm pretty sure I said this last time, but it's worth repeating that I know that that's pretty crazy to do in these times of nanosecond attention spans and everybody having a full plate all the time with what life has to demand of us.
Hmm.
Um, and just to be really straight with you, it just seemed like what was the calling of the time. This is our 10th year of doing some version or another of living resilience and the various kinds of online courses and back in the day, face-to-face courses and coaching and so on. Uh, and it is just very much my experience that these times are calling for advanced and more concentrated opportunities to develop our space holding skills together, and also to expand our capacity, individual capacities, and perhaps collective capacities to be present in the face of larger and larger stressors. I was really moved by the group today in the book session, and I have a feeling it's going to come on again in this one. Um, there's just an extraordinary, and by the way, hi, Jack. I was just talking about you and didn't think I would see you, and so I'm thrilled that you're here. Yay. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just again moved and validated, confirmed that the idea of having Jack's book be the first one in what will be a series of books over the year. There is so much overlap and for perhaps different terms from, the Chinese medicine aspects and so on, but the mutually supportive fit is very inspiring for me right now. So I'm thankful for that. I don't think I quite admitted as much as I could have last session, which was, of course, our first session in this Islands of Sanity portion of these Saturday get-togethers. Have in 10 years of putting together a kind of an evolutionary progression of the content and the ways that I've been running the introductory courses here in Living Resilience, primarily the on demand or Zoom courses. This is the first time that I've included material at this point in the course that involved grappling with or engaging with or diving into the possibility of writing our own story. Writing our own story, meaning what is the day by day way in which we might describe our own individual life? And is there a way that we might be compelled to describe our life in a way that includes some more universal elements, sometimes called archetypal elements? And so that's why, if you've had any chance to dive into the story material in the course material space, that's why I've included quite a bit about that, about the hero's journey, and as much as possible, a more modern version of the hero's journey. In fact, one of the elements which I've written into the material there, and I introduce it as an optional long form piece of media. The guy is an expert in how to um, bring a remarkable analysis to how we view films and how we might relate with or not relate with films, how we might identify or not identify with the characters in film and so on. So let me just stop there and find out, could I just see hands of anyone who's dipped into that content that I'm talking about, that is about creating our own story, or exemplars? I've given you a couple of videos who are exemplars about that, telling you about their story or just presenting themselves in a way that, great. Okay, so a few, just a bit more, and then I would love to hear whatever your feedback might be about your experience of the course material up to now, whether it's about the story part or not, because there's actually quite a few other elements besides just the story emphasis. I just wanted to be sure that it was clear why I was including in one of the introductory videos, one of the first ones that if you went through, kind of first to last, one of the first videos you would encounter in this course material for for um, third Saturday materials is one in which the Paul Chafurka stages of awareness is introduced. So I'm just trying to offer up some pieces that might spark your memory. And there's a before we talk about the Paul Chafurka stages of awareness, I include about a 10-minute talk from a young woman oh, we watched it together last time, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, yeah,
I
we
did
watched that.
actually
Yeah.
figure it out because I thought I kept remembering it that I hadn't. So we've got
Yeah.
that down as an example of, for me, she's an
Right.
exemplar of someone who has crafted a life that could be said to include archetypal elements. She seems so articulate about what is a concern for her and a bit about how she got there. And I think she shares that in her request of us adults in that video. The one that I did not take the time to show you last time is from a guy named Gary. Gary, the financial services guy. Anybody by chance watch Gary? Okay, so
Yeah. Nope.
maybe one. Okay. I'll just say a bit more about why I'm including that kind of element, and that is this is a massive experiment in starting out this year-long journey by planting the seeds of what is it to actually start to craft your own story, something archetypal, something that's broad enough and perhaps deep enough to include whatever you're considering in life, whatever concerns you, whatever matters most to you. And how are those things that matter most being influenced by the stressors that we're encountering more and more as time goes on here? So I think that's probably more than enough of just a little bit about what motivated me to put these pieces together and in this location. So I'd love to hear anything that you'd like to say. And Sencho, I see you waving.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed the "you gotta laugh sometime" piece, which was, if you guys haven't seen it, you gotta see it. It's wonderful.
Hmm.
Great. I'm glad.
Thank you for that.
I guess this is a good time to just pepper in, unless somebody else wants to share right now. I can leave some space about this whole story notion and anything else you might. Okay. There are a couple of other elements that you're going to find in each month of this series. And one of them is uh, some kind of singing, some
Hmm.
kind of group singing, where if you wanna, you can sing along with them. And just something that I've noticed after doing, singing kind of darshan from other cultures and other systems, I started noticing that it's really difficult for me to stay grumpy if I'm singing or depressed if I'm singing. or fearful if I'm singing. And particularly the group that I'm going to include most often every month is one called Choir, Choir, Choir from, I believe, Canada. And they're more or less a kind of a flash mob. Hey, let's get together and sing in this warehouse or sing in this theater or whatever. And it's not at all about bringing in an audience and entertaining. They do get recorded, obviously, and it is meant for people to watch like we're gonna watch them.
Hmm. Hmm.
But they're just remarkable. And the thing that melts my heart every time is I see them uh, singing, and their faces are so just relaxed and sincere. Like I want to be in that group. And I'll sing really quietly, I promise, because I don't sing well. But I just want to be in that group, that warmth and that ease. And those that can harmonize, harmonize. And those who don't sing so well, maybe they're hanging out in the back. I don't know exactly. I just know that there's a feeling of warmth and coherence, deep coherence every time I watch them do what they do.
Hmm.
And that is also one of the intentions of this group, is this particular session for however many sessions we do. And there may be other times and other configurations that we get into as these weeks and months go by. There may be special focus groups. There may be some folks that want to do a deep dive and ask for some support in a deep dive of one part of the course or another. So I just wanted to acquaint you with that word coherence and bring it along with something as weird as people singing. So,
Can I add a little bit to that?
yes, Janet, please.
Um, Choir does a version of Hallelujah that
Oh, yeah.
was
Mm.
in Toronto, and it's wow. It's just like 1,500 people,
Yeah.
all of whom I think are from choirs. Certainly, they know.
Uh-huh.
You've heard Hallelujah, right? From them, it is just it's one of those things you listen to when I need lifting up. And the other group I'd like to mention, which is I can mention, I hope I can mention another group. Um, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Um, it is it's a bunch of guys. I think they're from Ireland who started out in a pub. I think there's 10 or 11 of them. They all play guitar and they sing, and they're called the White Horse Guitar Club.
Hmm.
Um, and they have a version of If You Needed Me, among other things, but they're like regular guys wearing regular clothes who get together who can all play. And I I just love listening to their music. So um, but yeah, they can be a bit more rollicking, but
Yeah.
just it's just wonderful because they're like regular guys who can sing and can play, who started this impromptu group in a pub in Ireland that has gone on to be pretty popular if you know about them. So
Great.
th- those are my contributions to the music I listen to when I need some lifting up.
All
So
right. Well, Janet, you're making me think of another piece of this course material and format that I'd like to be sure to mention now, because I would invite you to go into the chat space that we have in the course material area. It's one of the little tabs that's up
Hmm.
on top. You know, you can choose course material or events, which tells you when the next session's going to be and all that. And then there's this sharing or chat area that is not big, Facebook, massive, kind of creepy for me anyway,
mm,
harvesting data and all that. It's just where we can privately share, and that would be so perfect. I would love it if you would feel free to, and all of y'all, to share what keeps your heart sparked in these times.
Hmm.
How do you keep yourself enchanted and warm and connected with other people, connected with the earth, that perhaps you'll, I don't know. So you get the idea, I think. So
Mhm.
you are more than welcome to
Hmm.
dive in and offer us up what makes your heart sing.
Yeah.
There's one last thing that is a component that I would mention today that I also just invite you to dive into. It will be a part of every month and maybe more. Uh, I'm I would call this guy just he feels like a personal muse to me. He's on a writer on Medium. He's an artist and a writer. And he also curates a massive collection of gorgeous quotes from all over the world. And his name is David Price. And
Oh yeah.
if you
Yeah.
haven't paid the price to pay, to read folks like Richard Lowenthal, who's on Medium, um, I have posted some of David Price's work
Yep.
um, in a Google Doc format so that you can see it. And if you like it enough, that you can then pay your whatever, $5 a month or whatever it is. It's truly uh, inspiring, and there's a grace that he has in how he puts together the art that he chooses, the quotes that he chooses, and then his own words are very strong.
Yep.
So you'll notice, perhaps if you recall from last week, if you were in both the book and the iOS, Islands of Sanity sessions, I read the quote from Michael Meade, and I happened to get that from David Price in one of his offerings in Medium. And you'll notice that is posted in the third Saturday section of our September course material.
Mm.
So I've talked a lot. Thank you for just listening to the kind of form of it, the schedule of it, the content of it. And I hope that these will be lovely, lovely inspirations for you as well. Anything from anybody about any of that? I'm going to scoot back to this whole notion of what are we talking about personal life stories? What are we talking about that for here at the beginning of this extensive series?
Hmm.
And perhaps we could start with the folks who raise their hand that you've dipped your toe into that material. You're a bit familiar, and all of us have seen Ecem, the Turkish woman who was sharing at the COP meeting a few years ago. And I find her deeply inspiring and archetypal in a number of ways. So I'm curious, is it making sense why we might plant the seeds of our own formulation of our own stories here? And it's really fine to say, no, Dean, I don't get it at all. What are you talking about?
Well, I'll just say that I don't know how, it's hard to judge how things come to mind, like why something would come to mind.
Mhm.
But over the course of being involved with living resilience, um, I've come into so much has changed for me, including coming a huge amount more into focus about what's important to me and who's important to me and how to function in this life. So, I mean, I, I've been a little unclear about the stories thing.
Mhm.
But that doesn't matter because, I don't have to understand the intellectual process of what happens in my mind and myself to get me to the place that I am now with my life. So I can only assume that something filtered in, and that was probably part of it.
Mhm. Thank you. I appreciate your trust.
Well, don't let me down.
Okay, okay, okay. Well,
That sounds to me a little bit like the not knowing, like the beginning of something and not quite knowing um, what's going to happen, where it's going to go. But for me, it feels like I'm trying to clear the non-essential detritus of my life out of the way. Um,
Hmm.
and so I don't know what that'll end up looking like, but certainly there's things that could go, like physical things.
hmm,
So
Hmm.
thank you. That I'm willing to wager will be a part of it, of this process, this track, if we walk this track together. Yeah. Um, Judy, you are,
I'm sorry.
there you go.
I was saying I feel this notion of a personal journey more, I don't know, fraught or complicated in these times because I don't feel that I'm just trying to find my own way. We're talking about topics that most people around us are not interested in engaging in, despite the huge impacts. So I feel that I'm trying to figure out my own way through it while also feeling responsible to develop courage and grace and knowledge that might be useful and skills, all these things that if I see things come crashing down around me, I have something also to offer. And I'm thinking primarily of my loved ones and my neighbors, the people around me, because we're trying to do the work now instead of, well, I mean, we are being slapped in the face by a lot of disaster, but not as bad as it could be. And so I feel like I don't just figure out my own shit, as it were, but trying to carry other people with me, possibly in the future. And that just makes it feel
Hmm.
heavier.
Hmm.
Wow, thank you for that. Oof, that just went in.
Yep.
Just wanted to mention about how my life as a musician and an artist and a caregiver, primarily for the past 16 years, it's shown me a lot about how to deepen my relationship with others and how much struggle that there is in just becoming more sensitive and in tune with the needs of other people. Um, and the content reflecting on how I've been anticipating on utilizing my personal journey to help to illustrate key points of embodiment and presence, the things that seem to be most important when we're dealing with challenging times, being able to slow down and breathe and reflect on necessities and establish how to move forward with whatever's occurring. It's the past couple of years particularly have been incredibly in flux for me. I mean, ever since 2020 really, but definitely lots of upheaval. And I'm going through another transition right now that's particularly kind of disturbing in a way, but to be able to meet whatever's occurring with courage and presence and focus on being present with whatever's here is has become what my life's more about at the moment. So although I have these ambitions of wanting to be more expressive and outreaching and involved with other people, it's been very difficult because of traumas and upheaval lately. But I remain focused on what I can do for myself. And so much of my life has been focused on how to be of assistance to others and at the neglect of my own self-care a lot of the time. So um, just been reorienting, and those course materials were just good for the reflection on how to further prepare myself and absorb priorities and to move forward with that. So that's what I would want to say about so far what I've witnessed in the course materials in
Mm,
relationship to myself and how I'm attempting to reconcile and recapitulate, you know.
Hmm.
beautiful, powerful. I'm sorry to be repetitive, but I'm not. I really want to ask of y'all. I know we are all full all the time, and yet uh, these hours go by very, very quickly. These hour-long sessions are just they're just lightning fast.
Yeah.
And so, if you're at all inclined to share additionally in ways that please you, in that space I was telling you about, the sharing space, I predict really good things far beyond what we can muster in this short space. And Justin, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, I've been anticipating on some things to share too. I've just been kind of sorting through a lot, but I definitely will be posting some things soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm.
Good.
I'd like to share just a little bit about why I included Gary, the finance guy.
Yeah.
He's a character. He reminds me of uh, a number of people in my early life, and because I came from pretty low end, uh, not at all wealthy environment, and kind of hard Scrabble street and family stuff and so on. He makes me look like the king of the world. He's he's come from a very tough background. And in England, that's tough. And I don't think this is not a spoiler because you'll just I think you'll get him no matter what I say. Uh, he takes himself to an extraordinarily high degree of financial success in the financial investment world. And what moves me about him is has um, he has this question he keeps asking us during the whole video.
What would you do?
What would you do?
Hmm.
What would you do? So I'm just slowing down my pace right now. This is something that those of you who've been around me in this work quite a bit, there's quite a bit of this kind of pacing in my system and cueing in my system to take myself out of the rapid fire thinking, male, linear, blah, 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 that I can do as well as anybody and have been in most of my life. But I've also been granted a remarkable amount of ability to shift my state to something that involves far more of a soul-based, embodied, um, feeling body based. So that's if you notice me slowing down like that, That's usually what I'm doing, is cueing my system. Because there's a way in which Gary moves me a lot. Um, I won't give you the punchline of his talk, but I'm so moved time after time as he takes us toward the end of that talk, as he shares what it is to grapple with having nothing as he was growing up, and having it hard, and then hard some more, and nothing some more. And then to get to the highest end of money earners in this industry and blah, blah, blah. He brings along his soul. He brings along a relatedness with the people in his life and also just people. He somehow has salvaged, has come along with a love of humanity that I don't know if I have that. I'm learning from him. I'm gonna be watching that again.
Hmm.
And so I invite you to listen to Gary in a way that kind of lets him into your heart a bit. And again, I guess I would ask if he moves you in any way about your own inner workings in that way, or your own reactions to him, or your own reactions to these times. Uh, I think that's all I want to say at this point, is just, kind of introduce you to Gary. And if you have the space for it, please do uh, watch and read and so on the various materials for September. We're going to keep moving. I'm going to be posting the stuff for the first Saturday in October this week. And if you're already ahead and you feel like moving into it, you're so welcome anytime. You just dive in. Uh,
What,
yeah, he may help you plant the seeds for growing your own story. He certainly has for me. So there's that. And I'm sorry, somebody was speaking.
oh, I was just going to say, again, I think one of the challenges of the times we live in or maybe living in is here was a young man who grew up in that abject poverty and class system. And yet he was able to see what he could do, what the game was, how to play it, and achieve that kind of success. And I feel I made sure I had the right phrase, terra incognita, is now it feels like I don't know what the rules may be. The rules may be the same, like if you were talking about finance, maybe another 10 years you could play the game and win it, but maybe not. Some people are predicting the whole financial system is going to be collapsing much sooner than later. And it's that not knowing what strengths or skills we need, or if strengths and skills will matter.
Yes.
Um, Climate change is very real and destroying lives right now. Where I am, I'm pretty insulated as long as my house doesn't burn down. Living in California, that's the big one. So it you want to be a Boy Scout and be prepared, and you don't know what you're supposed to be preparing for. And that's what's so challenging. Even if you're trying to do the best you can, it's like all the rules are changing, I think.
Mhm.
I agree with that. It, it's like the ground is shifting underneath us, and you just, how do you find your footing? So, and
Hmm.
I know someone online who's learning how to surf, and for some reason, I'm in Ontario. I'm nowhere near surfing country, so um, and she talks about that same kind of thing. The waves. You never know what kind of wave you're going to get, and how to stand on it. And she falls off more than she rides. So it just feels a bit like what's going on for me anyway is
Yeah.
Mm.
so he posted something.
Yeah, Richard, please.
Uh, yeah, I just want to throw in a kind of contradictory idea in a way. And that is that, you know, our human realities are all basically made up. I mean, most of the stuff we're surrounded by all the time is kind of made up over time, you know, it's either made up a long time ago and we still believe these things, or it's made up recently or whatever, or or we created new technology. But all these things are always changing, but or they're held over from long ago. But I mean, there are some things that aren't changing. I mean, there are some things that we have to get back in touch with. I mean, the natural world is our foundation, and yet we're out of touch with it. I mean, sometimes just gardening or spending a little time out in nature or, you know, staring up at the sky, I mean, it helps me realize, oh my God, you know, this is a real world we got around us here and we're destroying it or we're busy wrecking it, but we can relate to this world in a totally beautiful way, and this world supports us. I mean, we wouldn't exist or be alive without this wonderful world around us. So there's that too. I mean, somehow that foundation is there, and you know, I think part of our inner preparation is to reconnect with that, I suppose.
I could jump in even there, Richard, when you say about gardening. Where I am, with some shifts in the climate, some of us are really struggling to grow tomatoes now, you know.
Yep.
So even that, what are the rules? What are the rules right now?
Well,
And
yeah, right. I know that's true. That's changing too. Yeah.
Seems to be finding our way to be more comfortable with uncertainty. You know, and at least the natural world
Yes.
helps us to become more familiar with our natural state, which
Right.
is less removed and influenced by the changing of everything, you know, being able to be present with. So that's been where my focus has been, really trying to strengthen my ability to be in the moment, perceiving naturally, and try not to be so moved. And not to say that to be cold, but to be fully in the moment with what's occurring. So whatever happens is happening, and I'm not so swayed by it.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm.
That was an incredibly apt segue for me. Thank you. The October course material will be about um, kind of laying out what I call the neighborhood. You know, each of us has a terrain that we call familiar because we lived in it our whole lives, and it's an inner world. And in a space like this, we might introduce others to parts of our neighborhood. Is that communicating okay? So, one part of this work is the assertion that what got us into this predicament, this existential, this self-terminating predicament, is that we've forfeited our center,
Yeah.
forfeited that sense of home within ourselves.
Yeah.
That's not a piece that gets much encouragement in a culture that is really based on driving people to comply with the government and so on, and also to consume in
Yeah.
the whole consumer side of it. So much of what we're going to be speaking about really from here out will be on the foundation that we'll lay out in October about how to self-assess our own center. And in fact, what if we had a number of centers, if you will, or number of bodies within our body, because they're that central of importance. The easiest one to talk about is, so we have our physical body. Jack,
Hi, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you. See you again.
Okay.
So yeah, just really appreciate Justin, your layout just reminded me of that being the a cornerstone that we're laying into this next
Hmm.
month. And I actually lost the thread. That's fine. We'll be we will be talking about center quite a bit and how we might sit in circle and be of service to one another in the expansion of our capacities and the expansion of our felt sense of center as we reclaim it. So, yeah.
There's I don't know if comfort is the right word. I'll use it though, a comfort in turning inward and trying to find sense and balance.
Mm, mm,
I kind of fell apart starting 2016 with the political situation in this country, and I spent quite a few years driving myself crazy because I was trying to make sense of what I was seeing.
mhm,
I'm a super logical, way too heady person, and still haven't made sense. I've read a lot of books now that give pieces of what's going on politically. But if you're doing that internal work, or Justin, when you're saying, finding the equanimity to deal with whatever is, it's a much safer place to be and a safer approach to life, especially. And I'm not even talking about climate change. I'm just talking about the political breakdown in our country, how that, I mean, it made me physically sick for a few years. It took me a while to climb out of that hole because, um, man, we live in stressful times.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't want to get totally caught up in politics, but I do want to say that, you know, simultaneously with us going through this course the next few months, of course, we're going to have this election here in this country. And from everything I'm seeing and reading and feeling about it, it's going to be a pretty horrendous mess. And the aftermath of the election is probably going to be pretty violent. I mean, I can't see any way it's not going to be. So I guess my point is that, we're going to be prepared, we're trying to get ready within ourselves to deal with all this shit that's coming down the pike and being flung at us continually. And I think the ante's about to get upped quite a bit in this country, at least. And so we're going to need I think we'll be doing ongoing practice of how to be with all this and not be completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I've I've had an interesting experience. Maybe you'll find it the same. Um, Before I became aware of collapse awareness, collapse acceptance, collapse community, and so forth. Before I knew anything about Dean or this organization or Nate Hagen's or, any of the think tank people who are, trying to think outside the box. Um, I would, and in fact, starting with the 2016 election, that night when I saw that it was going to go the way it went. I mean, I was sick, literally. Like, I really, I related to what you said, Judy, because just that was sort of a a a changing point in my life, going from not,
Yeah.
not comfortable with politics, but that I thought, oh, fuck, this, you know. Now, by the time I got to the point at which I was acknowledging to myself from what I was seeing just by chance, or maybe it had been growing in me and I didn't realize it, about all the outside of the box, the not business as usual thinkers. I started to realize that the problem with that president and the fact that he's running again took a back seat to the bigger global picture for me. So
Yeah.
I started to not feel that was the end all and be all, was whether he was elected or not, because we're dealing with so much more than just that. And his wanting this election to go his way is just indicative of where the world is. It isn't just about us. It's like so much bigger. So I don't know what I'm saying except giving you that feedback, because it's a relief actually to be considering how much more I have to, accept than just this stupid, and he's that man who wants to be a dictator, who wants to be my dictator. And I'm not, he's not the only one in the world. And he's just an example of the business as usual. I mean, he's a really good example of
Oh, yeah.
business as usual stuff. So, I mean, I don't know what I just said, all of what I described means, but it's a comfort in a way that I've come to see something bigger than just that idiot.
Oh, oh yeah.
Well, I know a lot of us
Gotta
thought
laugh.
it's one more sign of collapse.
Yes, yes, exactly.
But when there are no options, then what? When there actually are no options, when there's so much conflicted element everywhere you look, then what? Because I'm not comfortable with any of it,
Right.
Right.
you know.
Right. Well, that's the work of working with the global collapse, basically the inner work that we get to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, right there with you for sure.
Yep.
I think Justin, you just landed us on the place where I came up with the words that I use to describe what this work is about. This inner work of collapse is to expand our capacity to be present in the face of larger and larger stressors. You might notice that there's nothing about fixing or solving or solutions or being optimistic or saving. Because I just don't get any of those words having much validity right now. I'm very happy to say that when I really dive into just the simple words of expanding my capacity to be present, I just slowed down and I just felt this wave of like tears pushing out from behind my eyes, because the possibility and the promise of presence
Hmm.
is like this door flung wide open to the implicit, to the oneness, to the backdrop of it all.
Yeah. Very well said.
Yes, and if you don't mind my yeah hunting, to what you just said.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, uh-huh. Um, the I had been, waiting for a moment to observe this out loud, which is a lot of the language that we're using in the collapse community is also used in, I'm not going to say a different context because I think it's the same context, but when, in, let's say, Buddhism, which I'm most familiar with, but and that's important to me to notice, not because I'm comfortable so much with the Buddhist stuff, the Buddhist language, but just that there's um, a synergistic kind of,
Yeah.
it feels like it's more than one language is coming together and meaning the same thing.
Mhm.
And that feels important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just because it's the focal point of my life to be able to be aware and to see the interconnectedness of everything, but it's coming up in a totally different context that
Mhm.
I never expected
Mhm.
to notice.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's an importance to that.
Yeah. It might be time to bring up the word that we talked briefly about in the last session, coherence.
Mm,
Just how you were just describing what you're present to and articulating. It started to ring for me like there's a coherence. We're from different walks of life, we're from different lineages, we have almost nothing in common about a lot of stuff. And yet there's this sense of connection, there's this sense of coherence that is for me quite palpable.
uh-huh.
We do have a common ground, like yeah, that's what it's helping to illustrate, right? Is our common ground where we're all in the same together. In this,
Well, yeah. I mean, how incredibly lucky is that? Does it feel to you the same way that I feel like it's incredibly lucky that I can be speaking to people that I didn't meet in the Zendo in Mount Tremper, New York,
Hmm.
and so we're all supposed to be friends. No, I don't know you guys, and yet we're speaking the same language, we're feeling the same things, we're not alone. And by that I mean millions and millions and millions of other people must feel just like this.
Hmm. Nice. Yeah. We're down to the last couple of minutes here, and I would like to ask of all of us to briefly check out with a couple of words or at the most a sentence of what you're landing with. How are you? How you doing? How's your heart? I mean, we've already been expressing quite a bit in this little coherence round, but what are you landing with? Yeah.
Hmm.
For me, I guess not just the possibility, but the need for beauty in times like these.
Mm, thank you.
Well, for me, it, I mean, it's very confirming to hear everybody's points of view, which, of course, mainly align with my point of view already, but it's also very heart-opening, and I guess healing is the word. It's
Mm, mm.
healing, it helps me feel more whole and healed, so thank you.
You got a big heart, Richard. Thank you.
Hmm.
it's great to be sharing space with folks that, regardless of how different we may see the world or have these perspectives that otherwise may potentially clash somewhere, that our common ground is becoming the foundation from which we can communicate and relate to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grateful.
Me too.
Me three.
I'm feeling, I think, some peace from all this connection.
Hmm.
It somehow is easing the distress. You know, as several of you have said, that, you know, we don't know each other, but we have some commonalities, you know, at the core, and that's just it just feels, it settles some of the anxiety that has to do with feeling so alone with everything. So
We're not alone.
Yeah.
That's what somebody from the Safe Circle meeting said to me, I think in a text or chat. Don't, we're not alone.
Yeah.
yeah, it's you referenced Nate Hagens, I think, and when you know, listen to those kinds of podcasts and then read through the comments about how many people are saying thank you for being a point to go to that's, you know, trying to bring some kind of sanity and balance. And over, so many people are looking for what we're building here. Is that sense of someone more than a comment on a podcast page. So I can't tell you how grateful I am. So thank you all.
Yeah.
Y'all, thank you very much. And I will be putting out some messages to you all about things coming up and posting. And I would so love to see any number of us start to share in the sharing space. And thank you so much. I feel so much more alive at this point in the day after these two classes, these two sessions. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell.